Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to this afternoon session of our 2024 London conference. We start this afternoon with a special focus on Nigeria, a country that has been a long-standing priority for Chatham House. Since 2006, Nigeria has been a central work for the Africa program at Chatham House, and many other programs within the Institute have followed suit since then. And through this collective effort, we have been able to try and improve the understanding of the complexities of the country. We have hosted many events. We have done different type of research and published extensively on issues of economy, political economy, governance, foreign policy, but also on some of the key challenges, some of the issues such as security, issues of corruption, and much more. Today I have the privilege of being joined by two excellent speakers. Firstly, by the celebrated British comedian, actor, writer, TV presenter, Michael Palin, as well as by Segilola Arisekola, who is one of the producers of Michael's latest documentary on Nigeria. Sorry, very welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to spend the next 30 minutes with us. We'll start the session with a short promotional video of the documentary. If you haven't watched it, it's available on My5, right? So we'll go to the video first, and we'll discuss some of the issues after.
Nigeria, an extraordinary country and a complex puzzle.
This is exciting. My first time in Nigeria.
Known as the giant of Africa, it's a place full of wonder and contradictions. I'm embarking on a 1,300-mile journey. From the people in vibrant, hectic Lagos.
This is the hot spot.
To the heat and rituals of the Islamic North.
In this chaos, there's also harmony.
I'll discover the astonishing natural wonders.
I didn't know what to expect. I didn't quite expect this.
And experience what faith and devotion really means here.
This is the kind of moment when you forget which country you're in.
The extraordinary people of Nigeria are full of surprises.
Kind of raucous celebration to the place.
This is Nigeria.
Join me, Michael Palin, in Nigeria.
Phew. Yeah, that's it. Is that all we can say there?
Okay, before we get started with the discussion, I need to remind you all that we are still on the record, which means if you want to engage through social media, please do so. You can tweet using the hashtag #CHLondon. So, to get us started, to both of you, as I was saying, Nigeria is a very important country to us in our work. It's a country that's really close to our heart. Over the years, we've dedicated a lot of resources, both human resources as well as financial, to try and really understand the complexities. And in watching the documentary, which I have, obviously, I couldn't help thinking that a lot of the themes that you cover have been part of the work that we've been doing. But before we get to that, can I just ask you both, why Nigeria?
Well, I suppose in my case, I'm looking for stories. I quite like seeing the best in countries of which you've only heard the worst, because that's what makes the program interesting. You're looking at a situation in Nigeria where you've got this country of enormous potential. Huge population, a leader in African politics as well as soon in world politics, I'm sure. And yet nobody seemed to know much about the country itself. I know Nigerians here, and you feel you know Nigerians. There's a feel there's a familiarity. But on the other hand, I've never been there, and I know very few people who have been there. And one or two people who should know better in high places have been there, so you don't want to go there. Which, of course, immediately made me want to go, because I want to find out what this attitude is. So it was a voyage of exploration in a way, a chance to see a country which we think we know, but very few people do know. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. I think, why not Nigeria?
Yeah.
Honestly, if Michael Palin had gone to any other African country, I feel like we would have bullied him on social media and be like, why not Nigeria? We have a huge population. I feel like everyone here knows someone who's Nigerian because we're everywhere, and because we are a wonderful country. We're hardworking people, and we're also dynamic and fun, and all of that you see in the show, which you can watch on My5. And so it's honestly, it's a beautiful country, and we are called the Giants of Africa for a reason. So it's definitely the country to go to in Africa. I'm a bit biased because I am Nigerian.
But you see, I had this, because my opinion of Nigerians in this country was being very loud and shouty. And going to Nigeria, I realised why they are that way.
Yeah.
Because they've, the government is not looking after them particularly well. They've all got something on the go. So there is, although huge levels of poverty, I'm sure there's also a feeling that they're not going to be passive. You're always going to put your point of view, argue your way, and straight away, there's none of this English. Would you mind if I possibly asked you? Come on, man, what are you doing? And you think it's aggressive, but actually it's just getting on with it.
Yeah.
And it's quite quick.
Yeah, I like to think we have passion. That's the
Yes,
word.
yeah.
A lot of passion.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And of course, as you say, often we do hear about the negative side of Nigeria, but there's so much more. It's a very complex country, and that needs to be understood within that context. And this is particularly to you, Sir Michael. What did you think? It wasn't your first time in Africa. I saw that you've been to West Africa before, Senegal, Mali, Niger, way before the current challenges in the region. How did Nigeria compare to your past experiences?
Interestingly, because it's sort of English-speaking, that made a lot of difference. And in other countries I've been in Africa, certainly in West Africa, have been maybe francophone and all that. So I found it very easy to get on with people, and I sort of, although it was bewilderingly crazy and mad and busy from the moment you step out of the airport, it was a sort of, I felt engaged much more quickly. And I'm, as I was saying earlier, about this feeling about Nigerians being very direct in their response to things, the way they talk to each other, what they're looking for. On the way in from the airport, just with lots of people coming up, vendors tapping on the window and all that. And they were selling all sorts of things, toothbrushes and matches and all that. But nearer the place where we were going, which was a rather smart hotel, the vendors had boxes of Scrabble and Monopoly, and I think that's quite brilliant. Someone's got an eye on the business opportunity there. They're all going to this rather smart hotel, so we want to play a lot of Scrabble. Yeah. I thought that was good, adapting to the situation. So I found it actually very quickly. I felt comfortable there, and I have to say I wasn't sure I would, because people tend to say, oh, it's very difficult. And what you kind of see, people talk a lot about corruption in Nigeria, and yet you don't see that. It's not a big sign saying, welcome to corruption or something like that, and people don't come up and sort of try and sell you a car. Well, they probably would, actually, but not all the time. So you're just into the life of the country, and what's happening in government with finances and all that comes through later. But basically, people want to talk to you, want to explain things to you, want you to get a good impression, or else they're just going on with their lives.
Yeah.
In the big market we went to the first day, I mean, one or two people said Oyinbo, is that right?
Yeah, Oyinbo.
Yeah. But
it means white man. He got called that a lot in the market.
Yeah. But it wasn't unfriendly at all. They were just getting on with their life, and there's a huge feeling of hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
which I found quite
And
bizarre.
I mean, it's interesting that you raised the fact that you don't see corruption every day, but that's not the experience of many Nigerians. And we've invested at Chatham House a lot of time since 2016 working on quite big projects looking at social norms and accountable governance with a particular focus on anti-corruption in Nigeria. Of course, working with many Nigerian institutions, 9 in total, as well as government anti-corruption agencies to try and think through some of the possible solutions to actually make ordinary Nigerians' everyday life easier. But
How do you do it? I mean, sorry, I'm not
Yes.
asking you the question. I mean, how do you start to deal with something which has been there for a very long time?
We started on this project. We start with from the micro, from actually a household survey to try and understand what Nigerians think first of all, because there's this perception that all Nigerians are corrupt. Our survey tells us no, it's not true. Actually, a lot of people resist corruption, and so actually looking at what drives corruption and why people also refrain from corrupt behaviors, and how can that be amplified through the work some of the anti-corruption agencies are doing is part of some of the work that we're doing at Chatham House. But going back to your travel, obviously, it's very fascinating. Was there any particular location, any political, economic, social, or even environmental issue that stood out to you?
Well, there are many places. I mean, first of all, Makoko, which was called rather demeaningly the largest maritime slum in Europe or something like that. So to see how a place like that works on very little, and also I think you can probably tell me more about that, the city authorities in Lagos were really trying to really want to clear the area where Makoko is, because enormous property value and all that. And yet they've sort of survived. Tell them why are the Makokans still there?
Yeah, and that's an example of corruption itself, because we have Makoko, which is like the largest slum in Africa, and we have the government trying to clear the people out of there and build tall, beautiful buildings. But what do you do with the people? And this is where I don't think Nigerians are corrupt, but the system is corrupt. And in Nigeria, there's a sense that you have to fend for yourself, and Makoko does that. So the government doesn't want them there. They're not even counted in the national census. So to the Nigerian government, those people do not exist. So they have to fend for themselves. Light, water, accommodation, they do it all. And to see a community that can do that and stand by themselves is very inspiring. So out of that corruption in Nigeria, you see people standing strong, and trying to build something for themselves. And I think that's where the Nigerian resilience comes from. Because our system is not the best, but we still try to make the best out of a bad situation, basically.
And also, I mean, I think another thing that struck me when we were traveling, especially in Lokoja, was that there was the sort of colonial shadow was not sort of totally eclipsed by modern Nigeria. You know, still was the Lugard, founder of Nigeria, really, or creator of the map that became Nigeria. There's a museum in his name, there's a street in his name. Even in one of the smart hotels, there was sort of a trendy magazine called Lugard or something. But, I mean, that was interesting. Like in some post-colonial situations, names have been changed to completely remove all the stigma. But there was a kind of feeling in Nigeria, which surprised me, that the British connection is a little more balanced. You know, it's not sort of, they've exploited us, that's the end of it, we'll never speak to them again. It seemed very different.
Yeah, they're quite open. You'd be surprised. Nigerians love the royals. And that I'm even trying to get my head wrap my head around that. But there's this, yes, they did colonize us, but at the same time, there's this relationship, I feel like Nigerians feel, this connection they feel to the British that we can't just shake. Yes, they colonized us, but at the same time, when the British came, they brought English, they brought missionaries and stuff like that, and they helped our educational system, our law system is still basically based on the British system. So we're not fully, which I don't think you can ever be, we're not fully like, oh yeah, the British horrible, but the good stuff we kept. The bad stuff, some of it we kept as well. But yeah, it's a more balanced and...
Some of it we kept, like the Benin bronzes.
It's great that you bring the relation with the UK. It was one of the questions that I wanted to ask, because obviously you cover quite a lot of area in Nigeria during the travel, which we'll come to shortly, but also history during that journey. And the UK is very present in that history, as you say, all the way 300 years of history connection with Nigeria, good or bad. And undoubtedly, Nigeria is very important to the UK, but that history also means it makes the relationship complicated. What should happen to improve this relation, to set the Nigeria-UK relation, reset, let's say, the relation?
Well, I mean, just practically, I think more British should go to Nigeria. I mean, it's a beautiful country, and it's got its beaches, and there are plenty of places where tourists could go and could enjoy it very much. But they're absolutely not provided for in Nigeria at the moment. I mean, conservation is not something that they particularly go for. And although there were some wonderful places where tourists will be welcome, but they're very badly run, so people aren't going to go. But I mean, that sort of thing would help. Just people go and see the country, see the country itself, and engage with the people in Nigeria. Like I did, it's quite a surprise, really, as I've said, and a nice surprise. So that would help.
Yeah.
I mean, like anything else, you could read the history of the country and see what
increase that people-to-people connection.
Yeah, I mean that's I think something I feel about countries all over the world. The one thing that is wrong is that there are lots of people who won't speak to somebody else because they're from a different country, and that is such a waste, an utter complete waste of time. But so that's the way it is.
Wonderful. And Lola, did you want to add anything?
I was going to say, one of the feedback we have from the show from, British people was like, oh, I didn't know this happened. I didn't know we colonized Nigeria. I didn't know there was this sort of relationship. So having that, education and teaching the British public, this is the history, this is what happened, good and bad, I feel like that could really improve the relationship because it makes it less than them and us. It's very, just makes the relationship better.
But of course, in one area, which I was very interested in, the area of sort of the creative side, music, films, fashion, writing, brilliant writers, especially female writers in Nigeria at the moment, read the books, listen to the music, be aware that this fashion was created, that this work was created in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I think that's something that would
and even just, sometimes thinking, oh my God, there's so much Nigerians in the UK. There's a reason. There's a reason why we're here. We feel a connection to it. So even just having that education is good. And, most of the time when we have, musicians, most of them are British Nigerians who come here and then, build on their talents. That's why. It's because of the relationship, the past that we have together. So if more people knew that, there'll be less hostility.
So, improving the people-to-people connection, more travel, education, but also understanding Nigerian influence in the UK, not just the other way around.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And just going... Sorry.
No, I was going to say also, you can't ignore the fact that there are 220 million people in Nigeria now. So, I mean, there are a lot of young people who probably don't have the time and ability to understand the English and the history and all that sort of thing. So I've always wondered about that. We go there and we cover various stories, but there must be an undercurrent of an awful lot of unemployment and people who don't have work. And yet there doesn't seem to be a lot of I don't know if I could be wrong, a lot of anger there. There doesn't seem to be a great deal of resentment. Maybe it is, but it tends to be a feeling, well, you do something, you just get on with something. But
I feel like that's the point.
Yeah,
We feel like we don't have enough time to sit and be sad. You need to get on with it. Because at the end of the day, we don't have a government that supports us. There's no government that gives you money. So instead of feeling sad and, you need to just get out and make something out of yourself and make, the best out of the situation. So maybe that's where that resilience and strength comes from.
Yeah.
You don't have the opportunity to be like, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be sad. We don't, because that does nothing.
And that links exactly to the next question I was going to ask. You do say a lot in the documentary that things are not working as well as they should, and that's a very something that we do see regularly. The potential of Nigeria is immense, but it is not where it should be at this stage. Any quick thoughts? Because at some point I want to bring the audience as well in case they have questions, which I'm sure they do. Any quick thoughts on how this can improve?
Well, I mean, again, as a sort of basic level, the road connections within Nigeria, and if people are going to go to Nigeria and go around and see the beauties of the country, they've got to have good roads, and the roads are very often absolutely dreadful, and lorries are like beached whales by the side of the road. No one's pulling them out and all that. So, I mean, that's just a simple thing. Get the highways going and get communication through the country.
I feel Nigeria has to take care of its people, because that's what is missing right now. We have an insane amount of talent, and you can see from Afrobeat, from music, we are people who, if we're given an opportunity, will make the most out of it. So Nigeria needs to create that opportunity for its people, for it to grow, for it to, excel. So,
I've found that we have several of our contributors, and Chris and people, Nigerians, saying the one thing that's important is Nigeria has got to try and do it on its own feet. It's a strong country with a lot of potential. They don't need huge amounts of foreign investment. Thank you. And that's actually, if there are huge amounts of foreign investment, that just makes it more difficult for the country to get its own confidence back. Do you think, was that just...
Definitely. That is because of the history in the past. We want to do it on our own. We're not looking for handouts. We're not looking for, an American government, British government to save us. We want our own system to be better for us. Better healthcare, better education, just the basic stuff that we take for granted. We want that, electricity that stays on all the time, 24/7. Let's start with that, which is really quite surprising because we have oil. So anyway, but just take care of us and take care of our people and have a better system for us. And I feel like that is what
should come from within Nigeria. If they're that ingenious at work and hustling and all that, it should be sort of at a higher level. They should be good at negotiating, they should be good at planning,
Then we have to get into talking about the government, because that's where most of the problem lies.
And so you mentioned the roads and the general difficulties of visiting Nigeria, and one of those is security, obviously. And I was quite impressed by the 800-mile road trip through the center of Nigeria, from Kano all the way to Port Harcourt, covering some very security challenged locations against the advice of your security team. And that's I mean, it's great that you were able to do that, but that's quite difficult for ordinary people. I don't think I'd be able to get sign-off from our director of risk at Chatham House to do that trip, obviously. And just, what was going on behind the scene? How many times were you stopped at security checks, for example? And how big was your security?
Well, security were the police were there, special police squad. What, 2 cars, 2 police cars, 4?
It depends on the place and how dangerous it is. But in the places that were not so dangerous, we had 1. The places that were a little bit dangerous, 2, and then it just kept going up. I think our max was like 4 police cars, and that's when we're doing Benin.
I mean, it seemed to be a lot. People didn't quite know what might happen. and we might get ambushed, but on the other hand, we might not. And actually, we were lucky, because you could see lots of sort of patrols by the road, you're watching the traffic and all that.
Yeah.
In some areas, south of Lakota and all that, I think it was a kind of feeling that things were not altogether happy. And in the southern area, Port Harcourt and around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
So, yeah.
thank you. So we'll take a round of questions. If anybody wants to ask questions, please raise your hand and stay seated. A microphone will come to you. So I will take that question. Anyone else? Okay.
Do you want me to stand up? Hi there, my name is David. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the impact of the recently inducted Tinubu government on poverty, inequality, and also its impact on the Naira recently.
Over to you.
One word, bad. As everyone probably knows, Nigeria is going through probably the hardest time we've ever gone through before. Even as she was talking about, insecurity in Nigeria, speaking to my mom, their generation, they could travel anywhere in Nigeria without security. They felt freer. They explored more of Nigeria than my generation has. So, yes, I don't know how deep I can get. But anyway, the government right now is not something that is favorable to Nigeria. As you all know, young Nigerians wanted Peter Obi to win. He did not win. That was a massive letdown in itself. But the government at this time, I feel, my opinion, is not serving the country or serving its people. And that's why, poverty is shut up and insecurity is shut up, because the government at this point does not have the best interest of its people. My opinion.
Thank you, Lola. Ahead in the run-up to the 2023 February 2023 elections, we did host the now President Bola Tinubu, as well as Peter Obi, as well as Rabiu Kwankwaso, for discussions at Chatham House to try and ask them what their plans were for Nigeria. Not quite sure how much answer we got from them, but we wish the current government all the best to try and improve in all the challenges that have been discussed. I think we have officially run out of time, and thank you very much,
Really?
both of you. Yes.
Enjoying it.
It was a half-an-hour discussion. Thank you very much to both of you for answering so many questions, and please do join me in thanking Sir Michael and Lola.
Thank you very much. Thank you.